Everyone says they want to be free. Free to live life on their own terms, free to make their own choices, free to be themselves without fear or hesitation. But what if I told you that most people aren't free at all? What if I told you that you are still living under invisible chains, controlled not by laws or governments, but by something far more subtle, far more insidious? You don't see these chains, but they dictate your thoughts, your actions, your entire existence. And the worst part, you probably don't even realize it. These chains are called approval, the need for it, the craving for validation, the constant, silent fear of disappointing others. It's an addiction, one that doesn't feel like an addiction because it disguises itself as kindness, as generosity, as being a good person. But let's be honest, how much of what you do, how much of what you say, how much of how you live is truly for you? And how much of it is for them?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Think about the last time you said yes when you wanted to say no. The last time you went along with something just to avoid conflict. The last time you held back your true thoughts because you were afraid of how others would react. That moment right there, that hesitation, that split-second decision to prioritize their comfort over your truth, that is the sign of a people pleaser. And if that feels uncomfortably familiar, then I have news for you. You are still trapped. But why? Why do we do this? Why do we shape, shift, adjust, filter ourselves just to keep the peace? The answer is simple. Because at some point in our lives, we learned that love was conditional, that approval had to be earned, that being liked was safer than being real. Maybe it started in childhood. Maybe you had parents who only praised you when you made them proud, who withdrew their warmth when you disappointed them. Maybe you learned that being easygoing, being agreeable, being good was the only way to feel secure. Or maybe it happened later, through friendships, through relationships, through the quiet but relentless lessons that society teaches us: fit in, don't rock the boat, don't be too much, don't be too different. And so you adapted. You became what they wanted. You learned to read the room before you spoke, to measure your words, to soften yourself so you wouldn't be rejected. But here's the thing, the version of you that they love is not the real you. It's the edited version, the curated version, the version that exists not for your happiness, but for their comfort. And if that's the only version of you that the world sees, then are you really living? Or are you just performing? Here's what most people don't realize: people-pleasing is not kindness. It feels like kindness, it looks like kindness, but at its core, it is something else entirely. It is fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of being seen, truly seen, and not being enough. And so you keep saying yes when you want to say no. You keep giving when you have nothing left. You keep suppressing your own needs because you are terrified of what will happen if you stop. But let me ask you something: what exactly are you afraid of? That they will leave? That they will get angry? That they will think less of you? And if they do, if their love, their respect, their presence in your life is so fragile that it depends on you constantly sacrificing yourself for them, then what kind of connection is that? Because here's the harsh truth: real relationships, real love, real respect do not require you to shrink. They do not demand that you betray yourself just to maintain them. The people who truly belong in your life will not need you to exhaust yourself to keep them there. And the ones who do, they were never for you in the first place. But breaking free is not easy, because people-pleasing is not just a habit, it is an identity. It is the mask you have worn for so long that you don't know who you are without it. And taking it off feels like a risk, like a rebellion, like stepping into a world where you are no longer playing by the rules that kept you safe. But what if I told you that safety is an illusion? That the prison you are in has no real walls, only the ones built in your mind? Because the truth is, you are already free. You just have to act like it. You just have to stop waiting for permission to be yourself. You just have to decide right now that you are done living for them. Because what is the alternative? A lifetime of quiet resentment, of exhaustion, of waking up every day knowing that you are not being true to yourself? Is that really the life you want, or do you want something more? Do you want to finally experience what it feels like to live without apology, without hesitation, without constantly calculating how every little thing you do will be received? Because that life exists. It is waiting for you. But you have to choose it. And choosing it means letting go. Letting go of the idea that you can control how people feel about you. Letting go of the belief that your worth is tied to how useful you are to others. Letting go of the guilt, the shame, the deeply ingrained idea that putting yourself first is selfish. Because it's not. It's necessary. It's survival. It's the difference between living a life that is yours and living a life that is borrowed. And I know it's terrifying. The first time you say no, the first time you set a boundary, the first time you refuse to play the role they expect of you, it will feel unnatural. It will feel wrong. Because you have been conditioned to believe that your comfort is less important than theirs. But what if it's not? What if your needs, your desires, your truth matter just as much as anyone else's? Because they do. And the moment you start acting like they do, everything changes. So, let me ask you, are you ready? Are you ready to stop living for everyone else and start living for yourself? Are you ready to risk their disappointment for the sake of your own happiness? Because that is the price of freedom. And it is worth it. Every time. People-pleasing is not just a habit. It is a survival mechanism, a deeply ingrained way of existing in the world that starts so early and runs so deep that most people don't even realize they are doing it. It is not just about saying yes when you want to say no, not just about avoiding conflict, not just about wanting to be liked. It is about identity. It is about self-worth. It is about the unspoken belief that in order to be loved, to be accepted, to be safe, you have to constantly monitor yourself, adjust yourself, and shape yourself into whatever version of you is most convenient for the people around you. And this is why it is so hard to break free. Because it is not just about changing a behavior. It is about untangling years, maybe even decades, of conditioning that taught you that your value is tied to how useful, how agreeable, how accommodating you are. And the scariest part? Most people don't even realize they are trapped. They think they are just being nice. They think they are just being considerate. They think they are just doing what they have to do to maintain relationships, to keep the peace, to be a good person. But what if I told you that the version of you that everyone loves is not the real you? What if I told you that you have been performing for so long that you don't even know who you are underneath it all? Because that is the truth most people are too afraid to face. They have spent so many years prioritizing everyone else's needs, everyone else's emotions, everyone else's comfort, that they have lost touch with their own. And if that sounds familiar, if there is even a part of you that recognizes yourself in these words, then I need you to understand that this is not just something small. This is not just a little personal quirk. This is your entire life. This is the difference between living authentically and living as a watered-down version of yourself, constantly filtering, constantly adjusting, constantly making sure that you are never too much, never too difficult, never too different from what people expect you to be. And that is exhausting. That is why you feel drained. That is why you feel unfulfilled. That is why, no matter how much you give, it never feels like enough, because the truth is, it never will be. You could spend your entire life bending over backward for people, sacrificing yourself for them, prioritizing their happiness over your own, and still, it would never be enough. Because people who expect you to please them will always take more. And the more you give, the less they respect you. That is the paradox. The more you try to keep everyone happy, the more invisible you become. The more you abandon yourself for others, the less they appreciate it. Because people do not value what comes too easily. People do not respect what does not demand respect in return. And the moment you start setting boundaries, the moment you start saying no, the moment you start living for yourself instead of for them, you will see their true colors. Some will get angry. Some will call you selfish. Some will try to guilt you, manipulate you, make you feel like you are doing something wrong. But you are not. You are just no longer willing to be controlled. You are just no longer willing to betray yourself just to keep them comfortable. And the ones who truly care about you, they will understand. They will support you. They will respect you more, not less. Because real love, real friendship, real connection is built on mutual respect, not on one person constantly sacrificing themselves for the other. And that is the hardest truth to accept. Some of the people in your life only love the version of you that serves them. And when you stop being that version, they will leave. And that is okay. Because the relationships that require you to abandon yourself are not relationships worth keeping. And I know it is terrifying. The idea of losing people, of disappointing them, of not being liked. Because for so long, being liked has felt like the most important thing. But being liked is not the same as being loved. Being agreeable is not the same as being respected. And if you continue to live your life trying to be everything for everyone, you will end up being nothing to yourself. And that is the real loss, not losing them. Losing you. And the longer you wait, the harder it gets. Because every time you silence yourself, every time you put your own needs last, every time you let someone else's expectations dictate your life, you reinforce the belief that you do not matter. And that belief is a slow poison. It will eat away at you, little by little, until one day you wake up and realize that you have spent your entire life living for everyone but yourself. And that realization will come. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day you will look back and wonder where the years went. And when that day comes, will you be proud of the life you lived? Or will you regret all the times you stayed silent when you wanted to speak? All the times you said yes when you wanted to say no? All the times you made yourself small just to fit into spaces that were never meant for you? Because that is the real danger of people pleasing. It is not just about making others happy. It is about slowly, quietly erasing yourself. And the only way to stop it is to make a choice to be uncomfortable, a choice to disappoint people, a choice to put yourself first, not because you do not care about others, but because you finally realize that you deserve the same care, the same kindness, the same love that you so freely give to everyone else. And if that feels selfish, then ask yourself who taught you that your needs do not matter? Who made you believe that you are only worthy if you are useful? Because that belief did not come from nowhere. It was planted. It was reinforced. And now it is time to unlearn it. Because the truth is, you deserve to take up space. You deserve to be seen, to be heard, to be respected, not just for what you do for others, but for who you are. And if that means losing people, so be it. The ones who truly love you will not leave. And the ones who do, they were never really there for you in the first place. They were there for the version of you that made their lives easier. And you are not here to make everyone else's life easier at the cost of your own. You are here to live, to be real, to take up space without apology. So stop waiting. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the right moment. Stop waiting for everyone to be okay with it. Because they never will be. There will always be people who want you to stay small, to stay quiet, to keep being what they need instead of what you are. But their comfort is not your responsibility. Your life is yours, and it is time to start living it. Most people spend their entire lives adjusting, filtering, softening, bending, and breaking just to fit into spaces that were never meant for them. Most people live and die without ever knowing what it feels like to exist without apology, without guilt, without a constant, exhausting weight of wondering who they need to be today just to be accepted. And if you don't wake up now, if you don't make the decision to change now, you will be one of them. Not because you want to be, not because you don't see the problem, but because breaking free is hard. Because the moment you stop being the person everyone expects you to be, the moment you start making choices for yourself instead of for them, the moment you stop existing as a reflection of what other people want, you will face resistance. And that resistance will not just come from others. It will come from within you. Because people-pleasing is not just a habit. It is an identity. It is something you have done for so long that it feels like who you are. And the idea of letting it go, the idea of saying no, the idea of disappointing people, of being disliked, of standing firm in your truth, even when it makes others uncomfortable, it feels unnatural. It feels wrong. Because for so long, you have equated being good with being agreeable. You have equated love with approval. You have equated your worth with how much you can give. And now, you have to unlearn all of that. Now, you have to face the terrifying reality that the life you have built, the relationships you have nurtured, the version of you that the world knows it might all be based on a lie. Not because you intended to deceive anyone, but because you never knew another way to exist. But now you do. Now you see the truth. Now you see how much of yourself you have lost. Now you see how much of your time, your energy, your happiness has been sacrificed just to keep other people comfortable. And now you have a choice. Do you keep going? Do you keep playing the role? Do you keep saying yes when you mean no? Keep suppressing your needs? Keep filtering your truth? Keep making yourself small just to fit into a life that doesn't even feel like yours? Or do you finally take back control? Because that is what this is about. Control, ownership, agency, the right to exist on your own terms. And I know it's not easy. I know that the idea of change, of standing up for yourself, of setting boundaries, of risking rejection, and of being seen for who you really are instead of who you have pretended to be, it is overwhelming. Because the truth is, when you stop people-pleasing, when you stop living for others, when you stop prioritizing everyone else's happiness over your own, you don't just lose relationships. You lose an entire way of being, and that is terrifying. Because who are you without it? Who are you when you are not constantly adjusting? You lose an entire way of being, constantly making sure that everyone around you is okay. Because who are you when you finally put yourself first? When you are not in a selfish way, not in a way that disregards others, but in a way that finally acknowledges that you matter too. Who are you when you finally put yourself first? That your happiness matters. Not in a way that disregards others, your energy, but in a way that finally acknowledges that you matter too, not to them. That your needs matter, and that shift, that your happiness matters. That moment when you finally decide that you will no longer let your life at all belongs to you, that is when everything changes. And that shift, that is when you step into a version of yourself that is real. When you finally decide that you will no longer bound by invisible chains, that is when everything changes. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, it will be painful. Yes, there will be moments when you question whether it is worth it, when you feel the weight of loss, when you wonder if maybe, just maybe, it would be easier to go back. But easier does not mean better. Easier does not mean right. And you have already spent too much of your life choosing what is easy instead of what is true. And now, you don't have to anymore. Now, you are awake. Now, you are aware. And now, you get to decide, do you keep living for them, or do you finally start living for you? Because at the end of the day, that is the only question that matters. And the answer is the difference between a life that is yours and a life that is borrowed. A life that is authentic and a life that is performed. A life that is free and a life that is controlled. And I don't know about you, but I would rather be real and disliked than fake and loved. I would rather live my truth and lose people than live a lie and lose myself. And if you have made it this far, if you have felt every word of this like a mirror reflecting back at you, then maybe, just maybe, you are ready to. Ready to stop waiting for permission. Ready to stop making excuses. Ready to stop pretending that you don't feel the weight of it all. The exhaustion, the resentment, the quiet, aching realization that you cannot do this forever. Because you can't. And you shouldn't, and you don't have to. Because this is your life. And it is time to start living it.